Hi, my name is Eric. I'm 37 years old and I work as a tennis coach in Miami. Today I want to share with you a very personal story that completely turned my life upside down. A story about forbidden love, passion, mental anguish, and bitter regrets. I hope my experience will help someone not to make similar mistakes and will make them think about real values in life. My wife Kelly and I have been together for 12 years. We got married right after college, where we both were into tennis. It was love at first sight. Common interests, mutual understanding, crazy chemistry. It seemed we were just made for each other. The first years of marriage flew by like one happy moment. Joint tournaments, romantic trips, cozy family evenings. 5 years after the wedding, our daughter Sammy was born. I was on cloud nine when I first held this tiny miracle in my arms. I vowed to be the best father in the world, to protect my baby from any adversity. But motherhood changed Kelly a lot. From a cheerful and sparkling girl, she turned into an eternally tired, irritated shrew. Tennis and husband took a back seat. Her whole existence revolved around her daughter. I tried to support my wife as best I could. I got up to Sammy at night to let Kelly sleep. I cooked, cleaned, changed diapers. I took my daughter to training sessions so that my wife could have some quiet time to herself. I hoped that when the little one grew up, Kelly would become her old self again, and we would live in harmony. Alas, the miracle did not happen. Our daughter turned 2, and our relationship continued to go downhill. Kelly completely immersed herself in work, trying to make up for lost time. Frequent business trips, business dinners, late meetings. She was hardly ever at home, and if she did appear, she was tired and detached. Sammy was mostly raised by a nanny. I saw my daughter in snatches between training sessions. We completely forgot about intimacy and romance. I felt like I was starting to drown in routine and hopelessness. My training sessions became the only outlet. Tennis has always been more than just a sport for me. It's a way of life, a source of energy and inspiration. My students adored me, especially the female half. I admit I was flattered by their admiring attention, flirtatious glances, light flirting, but it never went beyond innocent jokes. No matter what was happening in my family life, I had no intention of cheating on my wife. Meanwhile, my relationship with my mother-in-law, Eleanor, was becoming closer. She was about 60, but age had hardly touched her. Fit, energetic, with an amazing sense of humor, my mother-in-law quickly became a real friend to me. She often came to training sessions, cheering for me more passionately than my own wife. She encouraged me when Kelly had bouts of coldness. She fussed over Sammy, giving me a break. One day, when Kelly once again left for several days, Eleanor invited me to have dinner at her place and discuss plans for her daughter's birthday. I gladly agreed, having missed home-cooked meals and heart-to-heart conversations. After a couple of glasses of wine, the conversation smoothly moved to personal topics. My mother-in-law lamented that after her husband's death, she had completely lost the habit of male attention and warmth. She said that she was very lucky to have such a son-in-law as me, attentive, reliable, loving. She lamented that Kelly didn't appreciate this and had completely distanced herself from me. I don't know what came over me at that moment. Maybe the wine went to my head, or maybe the longing for a woman's caress reached its limit. But when Eleanor comfortingly stroked my cheek, I reached for her hand and gently kissed her wrist. This innocent gesture hit us both like an electric shock. The air thickened with tension, as before a storm, and we ourselves seemed to turn into clusters of bare nerves, trembling, craving touches. The kiss was awkward, almost chaste, but the sensation of someone else's lips, the softness of a mature body in my embrace, all this intoxicated more than the strongest alcohol. Eleanor didn't pull away, on the contrary. She pressed even closer, giving caresses. From her impulsive, greedy caresses, liquid fire spread through my veins. It was hard to believe that this passionate, insatiable woman was my wife's mother. The thought of Kelly sobered me up like a bucket of ice water on my head. What are we doing? How could I fall so low, taking advantage of Eleanor's momentary weakness? After all, this is meanness and betrayal towards the closest people. I abruptly pulled away, mumbling incoherent apologies. My mother-in-law looked just as shocked and repentant. We parted in confusion, vowing never to remember this misunderstanding. If only it were that simple. Despite the feeling of guilt, I couldn't stop thinking about that magical evening. Eleanor's touches, her intoxicating aroma, hot flashes in her eyes, all this haunted me day and night. Our meetings at training sessions turned into sweet torture. We carefully avoided being alone and talking about personal topics at all, but glances, accidental touches, meaningful silences, the air sparkled with understatement and desire. After a couple of weeks, Eleanor was the first to break. After a particularly emotional game, she waited until everyone left and pulled me into the storage room. She said that all this time she couldn't think of anything but our kiss, that for years she had been languishing from loneliness and solitude, and now she seemed to come alive. With her I feel special, desired, loved, the way I haven't felt with my wife for a very long time. And then, can one fight against real feelings? At that time it didn't even occur to me to doubt Eleanor's sincerity. After all, I myself experienced the same emotions: delight, intoxication, euphoria of first love. It seemed that we were two kindred souls, accidentally separated by fate and finally found each other. That our union was predestined from above, and therefore, we have the right to happiness. And to hell with the fact that she's my wife's mother and twice my age. The call of the heart and flesh turned out to be stronger than the arguments of reason. Then a mad whirlpool of secret meetings, spontaneous confessions, and fleeting touches began. We grasped at any opportunity to be alone, even for a brief moment. Passion blinded our eyes, dulled our sense of danger. It was an obsession, an addiction. Each new meeting only increased hunger, forcing us to risk everything for a fleeting fusion of bodies. At the same time, I was terribly tormented by guilt towards my wife. After all, I gave a vow of fidelity, promised to love and cherish her until the end of our days. And here I am, like the last coward, seeking solace in the arms of her mother. Every time I kissed Kelly and my daughter goodbye, I felt like Judas, betraying for 30 pieces of silver. I was disgusted to look at myself in the mirror after another adultery. Eleanor also was tormented by pangs of conscience, but somehow reconciled with the situation. She assured that our feelings were stronger than public morality and family ties, that one cannot bury God's gift of mutual love in the ground. She begged me to trust fate and not ruin our fragile happiness. She dreamed of opening up to her daughter, running away with her granddaughter and me somewhere far away, to start all over again. As for me, the thought of such an outcome made me physically sick. This passionate nightmare lasted almost a year. I rushed between two women, torn by conflicting emotions, love and shame, bliss and despair. The atmosphere of total deception, double life, constant fear of exposure, all this deprived me of peace and sleep. Eleanor, on the contrary, desperately rushed to reunite, threw tantrums, begged to spit on everything and start life with a clean slate. The pressure from her only exacerbated my mental torment. The apotheosis of this prolonged drama was my injury on the court. During serve practice, I landed awkwardly and broke my leg. Terrible pain, hospital, cast. At that moment, it seemed as if the whole world had collapsed. But the worst was yet to come. Kelly said she couldn't take care of me and pushed this duty onto Eleanor. Given the degree of my helplessness, my mother-in-law practically moved into our house. The first few days I was in shock and had no idea how we would get out of this. Any careless glance, word, or gesture threatened to reveal our secret. But Eleanor held up well. She portrayed purely familial care, helped with hygiene and therapeutic exercises. At the same time, she would cast telling glances at me, touch my hand or shoulder as if by chance. It was real torture to know that the woman you love is nearby, but you can't even hug her or kiss her furtively. Kelly hardly appeared at home, loading herself with work. But in the rare moments of her presence, the tension could be cut with a knife. Once my wife caught Eleanor and me looking at old photographs. We were sitting inappropriately close, almost touching each other's shoulders and hips. My mother-in-law was just telling a touching story from my childhood. Seeing the scene of Family Idol, Kelly froze at the doorway of the room, unable to utter a word. Her gaze, full of pain and suspicion, still haunts me to this day. The next day, left alone with me, Kelly staged a formal interrogation. She asked how long Eleanor and I had been having an affair, if I wasn't ashamed to ruin the family, what I was going to do next. All this, with cold, calculating fury, as if it was about an unclean business deal. I was shaking with fear and humiliation. How could I deceive and betray the closest person for so many months? Am I really ready to sacrifice my marriage, reputation, communication with my beloved daughter for the sake of illusory happiness with my mother-in-law? I got down on my knees before Kelly and, choking with tears, begged for forgiveness. I swore that I would break up with Eleanor, go through consultations with a family psychologist, do everything to save the family. My wife listened to my penitential outpourings with icy indifference, but unbearable pain could be read in her eyes. She agreed to give me a chance to make amends, but with one condition: a complete break in relations with Eleanor, no meetings or contacts. And also, lies should never poison our home again. Otherwise, Kelly would take Sammy and leave forever, depriving me of parental rights. The next few months became a real hell for me. The realization of the monstrosity of what I had done, the torment of repentance, longing for Eleanor, all this tormented my soul day and night. I firmly decided to atone for my guilt, to become an exemplary husband and father. I kept my promise and completely stopped communicating with my mother-in-law. I didn't answer her calls, deleted letters without reading. I even changed my place of work to avoid accidental meetings. I devoted all my free time to my family. I took my daughter to classes, played, read bedtime stories. I arranged surprises for Kelly, gave flowers for no reason. I enthusiastically took up household chores. Gradually, the ice in our relationship began to melt. My wife no longer shied away from my touches, again gave warm smiles. One night she reached out to me with a kiss, for the first time in many months. From unexpected happiness, my feet literally grew wings. Years passed. Kelly and I gradually returned to a quiet family life. Of course, there was no longer the former passion and emotional closeness, and sometimes a shadow of hidden bitterness flashed in my wife's eyes. But compared to the recent nightmare, these were mere trifles. Our daughter grew up healthy and cheerful. Peace and mutual understanding reigned in the house. I thanked God for a second chance, for not losing the most precious thing. Eleanor never appeared on our doorstep again. Apparently, she resigned herself to the breakup, ashamed of her behavior. She only sent gifts for Sammy a couple of times, for her birthday and Christmas. Kelly tersely thanked her mother over the phone and hung up. I understood that their relationship would never be the same again, but none of us dared to discuss what had happened. This topic became forbidden, like Pandora's box, full of pain and shame. Recently, Eleanor died of rapid cancer. The news of her death hit me like a punch in the gut. So many years of driving away thoughts of her, forbidding myself to yearn, and suddenly realized that the person with whom you were connected by something more than passion is no longer there. For the first time in many years, I gave way to tears. I mourned our unfulfilled love, said goodbye to a piece of my heart. I didn't go to the funeral. Kelly forbade it, saying she couldn't bear my presence at the farewell to her mother. It was already unbearably hard for her to bury a loved one without fully reconciling. I didn't dare to insist so as not to reopen old wounds. Only when my wife and daughter left for the cemetery did I secretly visit Eleanor's grave. I put a bouquet of her favorite daisies on the mound of fresh earth and quietly asked for forgiveness for everything, for cowardice, for being afraid to take a decisive step. Now, it doesn't matter whether we were connected by genuine feeling. I just wanted to believe that her soul had found peace in the afterlife. You know, having gone through all this horror, I made several conclusions for myself. First, no matter how family life turns out, no matter what disappointments befall, infidelity will never be a solution. This is a cowardly, selfish decision of a weak person. In pursuit of momentary pleasure, we risk losing what really matters: the trust and respect of loved ones. Secondly, if you've made a mistake, don't hide from responsibility. Yes, confessing infidelity is the scariest and most humiliating thing there can be, but only repentance and the desire to atone for guilt will help save the family. Otherwise, the secret always becomes apparent, and broken trust can no longer be glued together. And lastly, appreciate what you have. Don't chase illusory happiness. Don't take your wife for granted. Fight for her love every day. Find time for communication. Don't be shy to show tenderness. Remember that your children are completely dependent on the atmosphere in the house, and if something is not working out in the relationship, don't seek comfort on the side. Consult a specialist. Work on problems together. Once I neglected these simple truths and almost lost everything. Family, career, reputation. Everything was hanging by a thread because of a momentary whim. I was incredibly lucky that my wife was able to forgive and give a second chance. But I still live with the stigma of a traitor. I can't look my daughter in the eye without shame. And I will carry this guilt to the end of my days. Let my confession serve as a warning to all who stand on the edge of the abyss. Think about whether momentary pleasure is worth destroying your life and the lives of your loved ones. Find the strength to resist temptation, to turn your love and care to those who really need you. And then, believe me, you will find true happiness and peace of mind. With this revelation, I'll probably end my sad story. I hope it will help someone not to repeat my mistakes and look at family life with different eyes. Remember, your loved ones are a priceless gift that needs to be cherished and nurtured. And for this, it's worth going through any trials. Thank you for your attention. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.